any regular listeners of Brand Growth Heroes, you probably know that I love a good category value creation story. Well, this next one is for you because it is such an incredible example of how you can bring high value shoppers into a category where potentially they didn't want to buy before. Certainly, I'm somebody who would never consider buying cocktail in a can until I came across MOTH. Today, Rob Wallis, one of the two co-founders of MOTH Drinks, is going to be telling us all about how they created that top shelf incremental value for the cocktail category, how they're building a culture of kindness, cleverness, and they're costing a product based on what the product should actually cost and then pricing it accordingly in the marketplace rather than kind of downgrading all the ingredients just to hit the average price in the category. If you've ever struggled with any of those things, then this one's for you. Rob Wallis from MOTH, welcome to Brand Growth Heroes.
Thank you so much for having me, Fee. Can't wait to get started.
Oh, listen, it's great. So, MOTH, super premium cocktails in a stunning looking can. I have to say, I never really would have thought about buying a cocktail in a can until I saw your cans. And then I thought, yeah, they are really, really hot. You have grown your business, only launching in 2021, grown your business to double digits. A small part now growing in the US, but something that you're doubling down on. I can't believe that you've done so well so quickly. Talk to us about how you started this business and how you have decided to grow the UK and the US kind of in tandem.
Yeah, it's a bit unconventional to do the UK and the US at the same time. I think starting out, the end goal when we first started was to one day get Waitrose. So obviously the goalposts have moved a little bit since then. Every year we move them a little bit further away, which is part of the fun of it. But when we started, we were just looking for a cocktail that was as good as we could make at home. I come from a bartending background. My co-founder Sam is a huge food and drink enthusiast, and we just couldn't find anything that was the same as we would make at home, but more convenient. And so we just went looking as consumers and just could not find it, and sort of accidentally slipped into this category that hadn't had disruption or innovation or a quality lens for a long time. And so we got started with that. The first MOTH rolled off the production line into Waitrose in February 2021, which feels like a long time ago now, as we were running around stores wearing masks and all the rest of it. But now, sort of 4 or 5 years in, built to the biggest cocktail RTD brand in the UK. We used to say biggest premium, but now the biggest cocktail overall.
No way.
Which is amazing and so surreal from where we started out. But one of the reasons we look at the US is we genuinely believe we can be #1 global premium RTD. That's the sort of lofty goal. We've gone from one day we'll get Waitrose to that as the sort of long-term goal. And for RTD, really global means the US. At least some portion of the US. I mean, a great stat that one of the reasons that tempted us over there is California is bigger than the whole of Europe put together for RTD consumption. If the UK was a state, we wouldn't even make top 4 for RTD.
Oh my God. Where did you get that piece of data? Do you remember getting that piece of data?
Yeah, I do. IWSR did a report and we looked at it and we went, they must have got it wrong. There's too many zeros on the end. And they haven't got it wrong because it's IWSR. They always get it right. So yeah, that and a long list of other reasons meant that the US was just so exciting. And I think, as you asked at the start, why do it at the same time? And timing, for us, the same problem exists in the US as it does in the UK, which is in every category, there's a sort of bottom shelf. If you think of grocery, there's a sort of bottom shelf private label, a mid-tier where brands start to appear and have a purpose, and then a top shelf. If you think of whiskey, you've got the lovely Macallan at the top and you've got the own label at the bottom. In RTD, for a very long time, arguably, we would say until we came along, there was no top shelf. There's no really genuine premium option. And so we've built that here in the UK. And the US, we did loads of research, running around, jet lagged all the time, but it's the same problem. There is no super premium top shelf nationally in the US at scale. And so we were naive enough to think we could have a go.
And did people say to you, the US is really expensive, every state's a different country, every state's got different rules, don't do it unless you want to burn money. Did they say all of that and you did it anyway?
Yes, and they're not wrong. All of those things are true, and the US can be like that. I mean, you look at fantastic brands like Fever Tree, who went over there and first time round lost a lot of money trying to get the US right. So I think when you say doing the US or launching the US, you've got to be really specific. It's 50 countries, you're totally right. So when we say the US, we mean 3 or 4 states. And even then, as I say, one of those is California, which is as big as Europe. So you've got to really carefully say, When you're launching the States, what you mean?
Are you saying, okay, how do we make California sing? What cities in California need to sing, or what retailers need to sing in order for us to win California, and do it step by step?
Exactly, spot on. Because we were in California last week, in San Francisco and LA, and it's only when you're there you can get your head around the scale. It is just the UK with zeros on the end. It really is different. So I think beware of anyone who says, yeah, we're going to launch 20, 30, 40 states. To go, that's great, but I'd love to see your bank balance before you start, because you've got to be ready for it.
So did you raise a shitload of money in order to do that?
The technical term is a shitload. Yeah, no, so we raised some money, but I think we've been very cautious in our approach, state by state, retailer by retailer. And so for us, you can go in and spend huge amounts of money and prove nothing. So really you need to be careful and cautious, but still go for the things that you think can work and double down. So we've raised money for the US, and having a growing, exciting UK business is the backbone of what we do. Is vital to be allowed to let us go. We always said, you're not allowed to go to the US unless you have supreme confidence in your home market that it will still work and it won't fall apart and you've got the right team in place to do it. Because otherwise, you're just going to do two things badly rather than one thing well.
Great piece of advice. So what is your model? How do you generate demand? Is that the same now as it was when you launched MOTH? You went straight into retail, did you?
Yeah, so we always thought that we can't afford to change consumer behavior. We're not Diageo, Bacardi, Molson Coors, these people who can put so much money in, you can create a new behavior. We need to be where our customers are buying this product and offer them something better, or bring them into the category. So I'm exactly the same as you said at the start. I wouldn't buy an RTD cocktail, but I drink MOTH. MOTH's great. And I WhatsApped that to Sam in 2018. I wouldn't drink a canned cocktail until MOTH. And so for where we are, it's be where your customer is and make it as easy as possible to try it, to buy it, to love it, and to go around again.
And it's be where your customer is, where they would drink a cocktail if a really great cocktail were it to be available. So I imagine that's also like first-class trains, airplanes, first-class airplanes, but it's not top bars, because top bars would make their own cocktails.
So we're not here to replace bartenders. As a bartender, that doesn't sound like a great strategy. No, we're here to give you something of quality where you couldn't have it otherwise, something where speed of service would be a challenge, or space, or you're focused on other things. We do really well in craft beer places because they're not going to start doing a cocktail menu. They're doing amazing craft beer. But if someone wants a margarita, they should have something just as good, right? All of these places that is not a focus, but they offer quality, so you can't offer anyone else.
The reason I'm pointing that out is one of the things that we always work on in the Brand Growth Heroes Mini MBA is the question of where to play. And we try and create filters. So what are your filters? What are your decision-making heuristics in terms of where to play? And you've just basically drawn one out for us perfectly. It's where you feel the need. You would, if it was really high quality and if service wasn't an issue and delivery wasn't an issue and I was able to get it, I'd have it. But you're not competing with the top quality bars or places where those things are in place. So that kind of gives you your tick boxes of, okay, yes. And then you can prioritize them in order of size of prize, right? And ease of execution. Can we win there? Is that on our priority list or not? Do you go into food service much, or is it mainly retail? Is that where most of the sales are?
So when we started, it was COVID. So there was one opportunity for listings and it was grocery. We didn't even do D2C for the first year because we were so focused on that grocery piece. We then built D2C, and I think we're now the biggest D2C cocktail brand in the UK, which is really, really exciting. That's a huge part of what we do. It just because, if you love MOTH, we don't have a cocktail bar or a pub or a distillery or somewhere you can come and have a tour. So the website, if you love us, is where people come. But then into food and drink, it's where my background is the on-trade. And so getting to see MOTH in the on-trade, we have an amazing relationship with the likes of Frank and Manca and Honest Burgers and these kind of places that...
because that's not their focus.
It does, and there's a bit of a you do dinner, we'll do drinks kind of thing. Of like, you have a specialism, you have a focus, so whatever you serve can't let that expertise down because you're so good at it. So let us worry about that. And so, coming into those kind of places is just a joy.
I'm going to use this as a case study in next year's Brand Growth Heroes Mini MBA on the slides. Absolutely brilliant. You worry about dinner, we'll worry about drinks. It's genius. I love it because it guides everything, right? I'm thrilled to introduce Brand Growth Heroes' newest partner, Jolson. Jolson is a leading B Corp certified commercial law firm that specialises in guiding the founders of scaling CPG brands. With long-term relationships with clients like Little Moons, Trip, Eat Natural, Bear, Graze and Pulson, Jolson is also famous for advising the Innocent founders in their landmark sale to Coca-Cola. And believe it or not, they still work with the Innocent founders at Jam Jar Investments today. I'm especially impressed by how Jolson sets founders up for long-term success and by their commitment to championing female founders. Recently, I asked Jolson's managing partners, Phil Hale-Smith and Paul Chappie, whether it really can make a difference from a commercial perspective if you work with a corporate lawyer who not only understands your business, but also knows you and what you're trying to achieve.
The deals that you can negotiate can deliver massively different results because you've got someone that has lived and breathed that for, decades alongside you. And you're often behind the scenes, so you're not actually going to be visible.
It's like having kryptonite in your pocket.
Exactly. That's what Jolson is.
Yeah, we're
Kryptonite in your pocket.
That's it.
Thank you very much. Okay,
Job
we can
done.
finish now.
Job done.
I'm going to get Paul a special t-shirt with kryptonite written on it now.
Yeah, maybe not in your pocket though, just kryptonite. Huge thanks to Brand Growth Heroes podcast sponsors Jolson. Now let's get back to the show. Once you were sure you got the right product, and obviously I imagine, is your product difficult to make? You are going to say it is, but why hasn't somebody just made a great tasting liquid the way you have?
I think initially it was price. So the whole category cost £2 a can in the UK. That was the ceiling that was firmly put on the top of the category. And the reason MOTH didn't exist before that, or the sort of premium brands didn't exist, is you cannot make a great margarita for £2. And if we played the game of trying to compete with people who made margaritas at £2, we would have lost that game because they have scale and things. So we simply said, let's make it as good as we can, and then we will work out what it costs second. And what it turned out costing is twice as much as everybody else. And so, a lot of people would have said, great, well, that won't work because it doesn't fit the category and all the rest of it. And we said, we're going to stick to our guns. That's what it costs. Let's try it. And that, amazing Waitrose buyer at the time, who's still at Waitrose, John Vine, got it, just really got it and gave us a chance that probably, was against the odds for a brand that was so small and so young to go straight into Waitrose.
That's incredible. So then once you were in there, did you do anything in particular to drive demand and get people to the shelves? How has that demand grown over time? Because people can launch products all the time. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to fly off the shelves to the extent that you get more and more listings and you'll have more and more sales and enough money to be able to go to the States. So what has that flywheel been?
Yeah, so RTD is quite a unique category, and this is going to be a really unhelpful piece of advice to other categories. There is an almost permanent 4 for 3 mechanic in the RTD category across all brands, across all supermarkets, basically. And so if you go into that, it is not difficult to trial a new product. So if you're usually a somebody else drinker, you can pop a MOTH in and one of them's free anyway. So that trial mechanic is really interesting. But for us, I think it was just being so startlingly different on shelf. When we went to do the branding with an amazing agency called Pentagram, we sat down with them and we said, everyone in the category costs £2. Everyone in the category is in a 250ml can. Everyone is 5%. Everyone's full of sugar. Everyone's got ingredients you wouldn't use in a bar. And everyone's shiny and everyone is colourful. So we will be strong, not sweet, half the size, 3 times the strength, matte and rough. Every single thing that we could do on the outside of the packaging to represent how different the inside was in the liquid was a choice we made. And so to be so different in a category that is just colour, look at me, definitely helped us. So investing into brand more than anyone in RTD had done.
So how did you know how to do all of that? Are you just clever? Or did you arrive to that over time?
Prior to MOTH, we did little glass bottles for 3 years. So we kind of did our own MBA. So 3 years of hand filling, hand labeling. We were in Selfridges and Harrods and Daylesford. And COVID turned up and closed every account we had. And so we'd done a lot of work for the last 3 years about what worked and what didn't work, loads of what didn't work. So we had lots of learnings there. And then I think in part it was my co-founder, Sam, who's from that film and design background. He went and met every single agency that he could. I think he did 17 full pitches, proposals, went through to everybody. And I remember we chose Pentagram. We sat down in the front room there. And I think we talked for probably 3 or 4 hours and just about everything we'd done for the last 3 years, what mattered to Sam and I personally, what we actually cared about the brand. And as founders, you'll have come across this. It's really hard to know what's important because to you, everything is 100% important. Is it the fact it's vegan? Is it the fact it's high strength? Is it the fact it's spirits that is it you cannot pick through the weeds because it's your baby and it's so difficult. And so working with them to hear, they were like, well, what you really want to do is connect people, and it's about the stories you tell over a cocktail, and it's about that connection that it brings. And It's the moth to a flame kind of thing. We all come together around a cocktail and that sociability. So what you really care about is making people happy and building that social connection. And after 3 years of doing this, we went, oh, it's that, isn't it? And that's the sign of an amazing agency.
It is. Also the sign of a great coach, by the way, or mentor. To anyone listening out there, that's what your coaches and your mentors should be able to do when you get them on a call, is to be able to bring you back to the one thing that really is going to shift the dial, make the difference. So really good shout there, Rob. Once you came to that and you're on shelf and you're in the 4 for 3, and the rate of sale obviously was proving that, you know, people were trialing, they were repeating.
Yeah, so RTD is not a very loyal category. People just mix and match and do whatever. Whereas for Moth, we have a very loyal consumer, because a lot of people in the RTD category, if they buy Moth, they only drink Moth. I'm an example of that. There's no other RTD I drink. And there's lots of other people like that.
Totally incremental, right? Bringing a new shopper, a high value basket shopper, probably someone slightly older maybe.
Absolutely. RTD is a lot of time 18 to 21. And we go a lot past that.
In terms of category story, you're able to go into the buyer and say, look at your shopper profile. You've got 80% of your value is bought on deal, and it is bought by these people who are shoppers that are lower value shoppers. Whereas if you stock us, these are shoppers who are older, that spend much more in the supermarket, that are more valuable strategically to Sainsbury's or whoever. And it is not stealing share from your category. It's growing your category. That's what we mean when we say a great category value and a great category story, right? The reason I'm kind of illustrating that out is for sometimes founders, even in CPG, like established CPG, people coming up through the ranks, they don't necessarily know what people mean by when they say a category story. What's a category story? But that is the category story, isn't it?
Yeah, and we had to learn that. We didn't know,
No.
right? We didn't know what category it was. We didn't know any of that. But you're right. I think we latched on very quickly to the importance of category. We hired for it quite quickly. And for us, I think learning that piece of what your buyer doesn't just want to know about the liquid. They don't just care about the brand. They want to know what you're doing for the whole category, which as a young brand is really intimidating, because you go, I don't know, I've only started, you know. But we knew that for Sainsbury's and Tesco's. But I think it is the vision of a good buyer at the start, that when we went into Waitrose, we had none of that, and they still listed us.
Totally.
Which is amazing.
And the other thing, and just to like, this might be slightly geeky and boring for people who aren't into this level of category detail, but say, for example, if I think of myself, so I go into my Tesco Superstore on a particular shopper mission. It's a basket mission, and it's a Friday night, friends coming over mission, right? Which anyone who understands shopper will be thinking, okay, you know, that's cool. What does she mean by mission? Anyone who doesn't, they'll be, what does she mean by mission? I'm not going in for my weekly shop or my every 2 weeks shop for the kids' school food. I'm going in because I'm having 4 of the girls over for dinner once the kids have gone to bed. So I put 8 moths in the basket, right? And I also go and buy the poshest crisps I can find. And I buy the Tesco finest, poshest dips. Now, I'd probably be going to M&S if I had an M&S nearer. And my entire basket, instead of coming to like £12.50, is probably going to come to about 55 quid for that evening. And because Moth is the centre of that, and Moth is creating that occasion, that's incremental value that Tesco has made as a result of that incremental mission that I wouldn't have had if Moth was not there. So not only for the category buyer, but for the actual whole of Tesco, it is stealing share from Marks and Spencer's, because usually I would have gone to Marks and Spencer's to do that shop. And I suppose that's one step beyond just making your buyer happy. It's making the supermarket happy.
And I think it's quite a unique thing about RTD. If you want a margarita, an alternative to the Moth Margarita is making a margarita yourself.
Such a good point.
And so for us, you're probably not that likely to do that. You would probably go and shop a lower margin category of, you might buy a bottle of gin and some tonic, or you might go and buy wine. And so and this is the big difference we're finding between the UK and the US, and this blows my mind every time. In the UK, we are selling the idea of you can have a cocktail. In the US, you're going to have a cocktail, it should be Moth. So in the UK, it's like if you went to dinner on a Tuesday night and you went out with a friend and they ordered a margarita, you'd be like, oh, special Tuesday, is this something special? It is a totally genuine, no thrills switch in the US to go from a beer or glass of wine to a margarita.
Okay.
Does not register, doesn't raise an eyebrow. So in the UK, we've got to say, you are worth it. It's a special occasion. A Tuesday can be a special occasion. Have a margarita. You know, on our advent calendar last year, we had a line somewhere that was like, margaritas on a Monday. Aren't you on the naughty list? ? Or something like, lovely bit of copy. Because it's not the same cocktail culture. So it is, yeah, there's the category piece, but there's also the cocktail piece.
So talk to us about that then, because this is where understanding consumer attitudes, mindsets that drive behaviours in different countries are so important. People say, oh, well, you just take what works in one market and you just put it into the other market, And so when did you realize that about the States?
First or second trip, like research trip, honestly, just going in, the average US supermarket has more cocktail ingredients than a proper specialty store in London. And London is a global cocktail city. Like, it is one of the best places in the
Wow.
world to order a drink. And so going in there, you went, oh, this is just in the blood. This is different. And obviously, it's interesting being a UK brand bringing cocktails to the US. It's an interesting thing. So we obviously don't trade on the fact that we're British. We say we're a global brand and we're just doing the right thing by the category and by liquid and all the rest of it. But yeah, it's just, I remember just it being on margaritas on every menu. Here in the UK, margaritas on some menus.
You look like a global brand. And actually, when you said that, in my head, I just went, ching, Diageo acquisition target. Like you look like you've been designed to be the acquisition target for a massive global conglomerate. And I'm not saying you have been, by the way, but I think it's actually really clever as I think about it now, because if you can imagine yourself in the portfolio or in the brand house or the stable, as they like to call it, of your future acquirers, they're not going to necessarily shrink away, are they, in the future? I'm thinking out loud here, sorry.
No, I not a problem at all. I think from my perspective, it's the decision to be global is one we sort of stepped into, and that, like, because the design was so good from phase one, from Pentagram, we haven't had to change the essence of the brand, which is amazing. Because if you don't do it quite right, you have to keep iterating and redoing it. Whereas because we work with Pentagram, we haven't had to, and they have a very global lens. They have New York, Austin, global offices, which I think definitely would have played a part in their thinking. But for us, it's we're not a geographically specific. Cocktails aren't British. Cocktails aren't American. If we were a gin brand from London, you'd stick a little Union Jack on and off you go, right? But that's not us. Cocktails are a universal thing from Tokyo to London. So it did make kind of just natural sense as a category to be inclusive in that way.
Isn't that really clever, starting backwards? What do we want people to experience this? What's the perfect serve and the perfect pairing? And then find the partners as a result of that. I love this. You guys are such naturals. So were you surprised? I suppose I didn't realize that you'd had your 3 years mini MBA before, with the bottles, hand labeling the bottles beforehand. Was that called Moth or was that called something different?
That was called buveur, which is French for drinker, which is understandably unspellable, but a useful as one of the things we got wrong. But I'm so glad we did for the first 3 years. But that was all self-funded as well, so no team. It was just Sam and I. Like, didn't pay ourselves. It was really, really tough, but really exciting.
And you decided that you wanted to have a company where you and people loved to work, felt good about working in, right? And that culture was really important to you guys. Talk to us about that and how have you brought that alive?
So it's developed into like obviously a sort of culture of 50 something people now. But at the start, it was just Sam and I wanting a job that was a positive impact on our lives and somewhere we wanted to turn up to work every day. We both had in the past had jobs and bosses that meant that were, limiting or stressful, or you didn't, you disagreed with the way things were run or whatever. And that's not because we were sort of these, handcuffed entrepreneurs desperate to break out into the world. It's just because that's life, right? Like,
Yeah.
so many jobs are just like that day to day, and you've got different priorities, and that's fine. But I genuinely believe that work can be a positive impact on your life. And I genuinely believe that a culture that is kinder means you want to turn up on a Monday rather than dreading it, means you can win commercially. It's going well so we can afford to be nice to people. It's if you're not nice to people, it will never go well commercially. Or if it does, it will be short term because you'll all burn out and be miserable. So it started as a sort of, let's just turn up to a place that we love to work, and it grew from there. And we hired a head of people who really bought into the mission. She's amazing, and she's doubled the number of people in the business. but the culture has stayed the test of time and that test of scale. So it's a huge credit to her as well, to hiring people who want that kind of thing.
So what's it like to work at Moth? Give me a feeling or a day or what's it like in the office?
Yeah, I mean, the aim is to ruin every other job you might have by making it the best place you'll ever work, right?
Are you serious?
100%. This should be the best place you ever work. And that is the aim, #1 aim. And if you go off and start your own business, I mean, amazing. Obviously, I can't say anything because it's what I did. Like, we'll support you. That's so cool. And people move on and do different things. But genuinely, this should be the best place you ever work. And that is a kind, collaborative, low ego, for a long time, sales was the smallest department. And I think it's one of those things where, it's a very egalitarian culture. We're very ops led because we're hard to make. So having real equality and engagement between the departments, we have values that we're keen to stay aligned to. One of them is be the perfect host. Like if you're having people over for dinner, how would you act? It's anticipating what people need. It's being generous. It's being kind. It's pouring the extra glass. All these things of just like, what would you do if you were hosting friends? And that grows and scales, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean,
It's just lovely.
yeah, it's the best. You can win by being nice. I really believe it. And that's sort of, I am very anti the whole hustle culture and grind and expecting people to work till 3 a.m. and that's how you win in startups. That just doesn't work for me. I don't think, I know I couldn't do it. So I don't think it's fair to expect everyone else to do it.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. I'm cut from the same cloth. I think the world should be a nicer place, and well done. Well done for doing what you're doing. And I think that's really inspiring. This is ruin any other job you ever have. That's like really inspiring that you want to do that. So that costs, there's a cost associated with that, right? But that's okay because it's an investment and it's the kind of place you want to work. So talk to us about product then. What is so special about what goes into the can, and how do you make sure that it stays that special over time?
I think it is probably genuinely the hardest thing in FMCG and startups and scaling is quality and consistency. To continue that is the biggest challenge. And it's one of those things you can never rest on your laurels. It's never done, it's never finished, it's continuous improvement. So I think from us being our first hire was in operations, she was ex innocent and still with the business, doing an amazing job and leading that operations function. I think it is an obsessiveness with quality and a not being, if you're going to build a brand that is solely based on this is the best margarita you'll have in a can, and it will be if you try it again in 6 months, and it will be if you pick it up in a different retailer or a different country, recognizing the challenge of that and what the investment and the scaffolding you need to put around that as a problem is, as how massive it is, I think is the only way to do it. If you just think it's going to be fine and you think a manufacturer will care as much as you will, you are wrong.
And at the moment, you're using a co-manufacturer partner.
Yeah, we do. We use several. Yeah.
Okay. And would you ever consider building your own?
So Jade, who came from Innocent, they were just building the factory in Rotterdam, which was 355 million euros, I think, to have their own factory for the first time. And hearing the horror stories of that as a process from a brand that we respect so much and love and has been bought by Coke did sort of give us pause of maybe that's not for us. And also, when we started, it went faster than we thought. If we'd have built our own factory, we'd have been too big for it on day 2. And so it gives us that real scalability to be able to continue to scale and to be nimble and to be light, but to mean that we have to bring procurement and operations and things that mean co-manufacturers are well supervised, well looked after, we have a good relationship. That's where we invest rather than building a factory.
Okay, and process as well. I mean, making sure that there's constant relationship building and NPD and all of that stuff, like that has to sit under you guys, right? Because they're good at what they're doing and you've got to be good at leading the charge. Before we came on the call, you were telling me, we were talking about AI and the changes that are going to come. You were saying that you actually have appointed an AI champion within the Moth team. So talk to us, how did you come to that decision and what are your thoughts on how AI is going to change how we work in CPG?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of investors who are obviously looking at AI as a market and are sort of asking us constantly, like, what are you doing with it? And I think we needed to have someone that looked after it because it can be an amazing tool in the right hands and can be a disservice in others. So I think from our perspective, we're looking at ways it can make us more efficient as a business. But I think we're also quite clear on things it's not going to do for us. It's not going to replace, because we're in a very human industry. Food and drink is about as old school as it gets, right? We've been sitting around the fire for 30,000 years, keeping the night away with the drink, right? So this is still a very human thing, still something that I think people will see through instantly if you're trying to remove that human part of what we do. But that doesn't mean there aren't like internal processes and ways we do things that could be way better and make the humans at Moth have a easier, better, quicker, more efficient life as part of their work. So it's a really challenging balance, and that's why we appointed someone to make sure that it's looked at properly and taken seriously, because there are ways that it'll fire us into the future, and there are ways that will disconnect us from the consumer, which isn't the idea.
That's incredible. So that person, you know, I suppose it has to be kind of exploratory at the beginning. Do you decide on areas like, okay, so ops efficiency or, you know, people management, or do you just let them off to find out what they find out? Surely you have to harness it somehow.
Yeah, it's difficult because you could do so much, right?
Yeah.
So we went and got a survey from everybody. How would you or how do you already use it? And where's it helpful? Where's it unhelpful? And we sort of gathered all that into one place and then started to go, well, prioritize. What do we think actually is going to make the biggest difference? What makes the boat go faster, right? What actually moves the needle here? And what can you do without sort of totally disturbing everybody or disconnecting from the consumer and all the rest of it? And we're literally in that process of prioritization at the moment. So trying to work out where we use it as a tool rather than let it sort of massively change the way we, connect with the consumer or make the product or all the rest of it.
Yeah, and then I suppose it's like over time you'll be able to see very quickly what the return on investment is, because if that person focuses themselves, their time, their hours, it's really easy to see. Okay, well, we know what they cost us. What return are they delivering in terms of reduction in cost and revenue driving? I imagine if you're able to do marketing in a different way or demand generation in a different way, it'll be really easy because you started at the beginning to see whether it's worth investing more in over time or which areas are showing the best return on investment. It's really clever. Well done you for jumping on it.
I wish it was my idea.
Well, whoever's idea it was, they should be patted on the back.
Absolutely. And I think for us, it's that we don't know what we don't know. And that's sort of a general theme of Moth from the start, right? There's so much that we don't know. And going into this with a huge degree of naivety is a superpower at some points and a massive problem at others. And it's just trying to, use it as a superpower rather than a kryptonite.
So what's next for Moth? The next 3 years, what do they look like?
So the UK is, although we're now, as I said, that biggest cocktail brand in RTD and grocery, we're nowhere near done. We really believe there's so much headroom to go after, and there's new channels, and we're so excited by the opportunities. With the likes of Honest and Frank Manca in the last year, like what's happened with that as a brand has just been amazing. They've been such incredible partners. And then the US, yeah, we are so early into that journey. If the UK is a sort of walking, talking toddler, the US is a little baby that we're looking at, and it's growing so fast and needs constant attention and all the rest of it, and tries to get up and falls over and doesn't, and then starts talking, and so all of these things. But I think the big focus for us is that continued, winning the UK and building a home market that's really secure and exciting, and then with the US, just that opportunity to scale.
Did you say to me that your co-founder is now in New York full time?
Yeah, so he moved out there. So we're both back and forth all the time, but really important to have us, at least one of us in each of the markets.
What's that like? So since February, I suppose you would see each other before every day, and I'm sure you're still on WhatsApp or you're still on Google Meet or Teams or whatever it is, but that's like you're both now have almost, I don't know, there's a separation as well as a togetherness. How does that feel and look like for you guys now?
I mean, it's a big adjustment. We've been friends since we were 13. We probably lived 10 minutes away from each other as kids. We lived together at uni. We lived a road away from each other when we moved to London when I first went back. So this is like the biggest I moved to Switzerland for a bit in the middle before Moth, but this is probably like the biggest separation for us since in 17 years maybe as friends. So it is a huge adjustment, but there are positives to it. Like having someone on the ground and having when you're on calls with the US, having them know that you have a team and a founder in the US, the commitment that shows to them and the confidence it gives them from Sam being there is, you can't underestimate it. So it's weird from a personal level of like not having my best mate in the office every day, but from a professional level, it is different, and you have to be much more conscious in your communication and do all the rest of it. But it is amazing to have that and the team be out there and led by him and inspired by him, and he's such a huge part of the culture from when we started, making sure that we don't just have the US as an outpost. It has that same Moth identity, that same Moth culture. I don't think we could achieve that without one of us there.
Do you guys have a coach that you see together and separately?
Yeah, so we have lots of amazing advisors. Our chair is the ex-CMO of Diageo, Andy Fennell, who we speak to every week. He's amazing. We also have Matt Frost, who used to be head of grocery at Waitrose, a huge part of our journey. So those two we speak to every single week, both together or if there's specific stuff separately. So yeah, look, this is our first business. The people in the team and the people that advise us is the only reason we're here, right? So we don't underestimate or undervalue what they bring to us.
Well, Rob, Thank you so much for coming on Brown Growth Heroes today. I am really delighted to learn more about Moth. I'm super impressed. I mean, I do mean that genuinely. Like, I am super impressed at the kind of maturity, the way in which you guys approach things, from people to, you know, making decisions of where to play and how to win. It really is truly inspirational. So thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing all of that with the Brown Growth Heroes listeners.
Thanks so much for having me, Fee. It's been great.
It's been brilliant. Thank you. Since recording that episode, I got a delivery of Moth cocktails to my house. And my God, I didn't actually believe that the difference could be so wild. But let me tell you, you know, when you drink back a drink, if you're not a spirits drinker or a cocktail drinker and you drink back a drink and you get that like, whoa, that's what I got. You know, the alcohol content, the balance, the flavor, it felt like I was drinking real passion fruit coulis. That's the one I've tried so far. I'm dying to try the espresso martini, but I've got to wait till next weekend. Rob and team, thank you so much for sending me those drinks. If anyone hasn't tried them, I highly recommend you do. Links in the show notes, in the post below. And yeah, what a great case study of clever thinking, bravery. The US expansion is going to be absolutely huge. Wishing you guys the very best of luck. And for all of those listeners who've enjoyed this episode, please do click follow, like, share the episode, send it to a founder or to a fellow cocktail lover who'd like to listen. And thank you so much.